Well, joining you now with breaking news on word that OPSO released an inmate on accident. This information just coming down to our newsroom.
Yeah, this is, of course, the second time in recent months that we've been dealing with someone who was inadvertently either released or escaped from Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office custody. This afternoon, we are learning in our newsroom that the person that they are looking for is Khalil Bryan. This is the man on your screen right now. Apparently, an error in inmate processing allowed Khalil Bryan to be released, even though he was supposed to be held on a more than $100,000 bond. Bryan has been held on charges of possession of a firearm or weapon by a felon, aggravated assault with a firearm, which is likely a shooting, home invasion, domestic abuse, child endangerment. Those are the charges that he was initially being held for. Apparently, he was released at some point and then was rearrested after he did not show up for court the first time. So he was, formally charged in court, awaiting trial, out on bond, doesn't show back up for court, and then the sheriff's office ended up letting him out again. So we are expecting the NOPD to address this in just a few moments.
Yeah, we heard waiting on word from Superintendent Anne Kirkpatrick. We do have a statement from DA Jason Williams, a pretty lengthy statement that says in part that despite those holds that Katie just mentioned, Bryan was released in error again when deputies responded to a bond posted by an unrelated individual for another inmate, failed to properly verify identity and mistakenly discharged Bryan instead. He called it a deeply troubling incident that underscores the ongoing systemic issues surrounding the exercise of custody and control over a detained individual. It is really one of the things, and we'll have that full statement on our website, wwltv.com. It is just another on a saga of ongoing situations that is happening at the Orleans Parish jail system.
Yeah, we, of course, detailed what happened several months ago when those 10 inmates escaped. One of them still on the run, Derek Groves. He has yet to be found and taken back into custody. The other 9 actually appeared in court just this week, as well as the people who are now charged with helping them to escape.
Yes.
Many people associated with this whole incident, and now this is the latest serious problem for Orleans Sheriff Susan Hudson. We have yet to hear from her in this incident, as far as I know, but we are again waiting to hear from NOPD Superintendent Anne Kirkpatrick, who was supposed to be taking the podium at around 4:15, so just a few minutes off of that time.
Yeah, we were alerted to this maybe about 20 or 30 minutes before it was supposed to happen. It was moved back to yet again. We're hoping that that could be because they have new information or maybe an arrest has been made, but so far they're taking all of the necessary steps. One of the things I was really curious in knowing, and we can find this out, but you said in the information that you found that he was released mistakenly today, or they were notified today that he was mistakenly released. And when you think back to the other 10 escapees that had gotten out of the Orleans Justice Center, there was a 7.5 hour, 8 hour window before people knew anything. So probably on top of this really quickly when they found out that the mistake had been made.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the time frame is. All we know right now is that is what's contained in that statement from DA Jason Williams about the fact that another inmate they thought was Khalil Bryan, was bonding out. He posted the legal bond, and so he was getting out, but instead the Orleans Sheriff's Office released Khalil Bryan, who's being held on some very serious felonies here.
Well, and I know that there are victims in the crimes here. Jason Williams did say that OPDA victims advocates have initiated victim outreach. They will continue their efforts until all victims and witnesses that are associated with Mr. Bryan's crimes or alleged crimes are prosecuted or reached. They were unable to make contact, actually, where they're dispatching investigators to make sure all affected victims are safe and taken care of and are notified, by the way, that this person is again back on the streets. But I mean, just another situation, another incident that leaves a bad stain, really, on the OPSO jail. I mean, it's just unfortunate that this keeps happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are so many people who are involved in every case that comes through that jail and every case that comes through our justice system, especially ones like this, where these are crimes against people. There's a domestic component to this, obviously, given the nature of the charges that Khalil Bryan was being held on. So, a lot of players need to be involved here, and people who I'm sure are concerned about their own safety.
Yeah, and these charges are stemming from last year, correct?
Yes, from 2024. It looks like the Bill of Information was filed July 8th, 2024, so a little bit over a year ago now. And now, again, Bryan was out on a legal bond at one point, but the problem is he failed to show up for court. And that's when the judge issued a $100,000 warrant for his arrest, a capias for his arrest. And instead of holding him on that warrant whenever he was rearrested, they ended up letting him go because they thought he was somebody else who was bonding out.
Well, right now, Superintendent Anne Kirkpatrick is on her way to the NOPD headquarters right now, and right there on Poydras. And we just got word actually into our newsroom that Sheriff Susan Hudson does plan to be there.
Yes, so we are expecting to hear from the sheriff now to find out exactly what happened, how this went down, and what efforts are underway in order to try and find Khalil Bryan again. There is just some video of Susan Hudson, who has really had a tough go the last several months.
Yeah, you know, Susan Hudson is about to go back up for re-election right now. Quickly paused her campaign for re-election. That is after that historic escape from the Orleans Justice Center. 10 inmates, 9 back in custody now in Angola, 1 that is still on the run. So we're still in the midst of that situation happening, and it still has, like I said, an ugly stain on the Orleans Justice Center and on Sheriff Susan Hudson. So now you have this situation, which, you know, without us knowing exactly what happened and all of the steps and who was involved, without us knowing everything, Sheriff Susan Hudson still, though, sheriff of the jail and head of things that are over there. So when you have something like this happen, it still puts a negative stain on you still, again.
It certainly does. And, you know, with that political landscape in mind, we have some serious challengers running against Susan Hudson. And so politics definitely plays a role in this situation. However, at its core, this is what really matters. Khalil Bryan on the run, released mistakenly by the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. And so hopefully we're going to find out from NOPD Superintendent Anne Kirkpatrick and Sheriff Susan Hudson in just a few moments exactly how this mistake was made, if this was human error, if this was a clerical error, if something happened in the computer system for the Orleans Sheriff's Office, or if this was a mistake by a deputy who just thought one inmate was a different inmate. Obviously, that raises some serious questions about inmate tracking within that facility.